here at the moment. There's not even a sprinkle here. The river is looking pretty calm. That could all change in an instant. So follow those warnings, follow the advice from the experts, and don't hesitate to evacuate if that is what you're told to do. Hugh?
Sound advice, Michael. Thank you. A couple has lost everything on what was meant to be the happiest day of their lives. Their wedding today was cancelled, and when they thought things couldn't get any worse, they saw their house with their pets inside floating away in the floodwaters.
Before your very eyes,
Holy!
floating down Tari's Manning River, something you don't see every day. Athletes grateful they weren't at home as they went their separate ways to prepare for their wedding day.
We were supposed to get married last weekend, then we've changed it to this weekend, so we would have been asleep in the house.
The entire mid-north
causing severe flooding and intense storms. Billy Hogan tells us a tornado ripped through one Sydney suburb, ripping roofs from homes and sending debris flying. Well, SES crews have been swamped with calls for help around Greater Sydney as this weather event moves south and wreaks havoc in communities around the area. Warragamba Dam has begun spilling water into the Nepean River for the first time in 9 years after reaching capacity just a short time ago. That sparked major concern for communities based on that river, as well as the Hawkesbury River, with flooding predicted for later tonight and into tomorrow. North Richmond and Windsor are expected to be the worst hit, with a major warning in place after seeing rain similar to what we saw in the February floods last year. Localised intense conditions brought a freak storm southwest of Sydney, whipping up a tornado, damaging 50 homes, sending backyard items flying near Bankstown and leaving 2,300 houses without power. Trees and satellites were ripped out of the ground, fences torn through and roofs peeled off. One trampoline ended up several houses over, lodged into a wall after it was tossed around by the high winds.
So all of a sudden the wind picked up, and then we saw the tornado form, and then we saw trees and plants and people's furniture flying in the air, rubbish bins, and then we screamed and just ran back inside. I've never been so scared in my life.
But that roof's over there somewhere. Don't know whose trampoline that is.
The SES has already been swamped with 4,000 call-outs, 500 direct flood rescues since this morning. The Premier and Emergency Services Minister advising people to keep alert and follow the official advice, with this weather event likely to hang around until Friday next week. A fleet of RFS crews have joined this support group, bringing tarps and sandbags to homes around the area to flood-proof them as this anxious 72-hour period begins. Entire towns are underwater as the New South Wales mid-north coast suffers through a once-in-a-50-year flood. And as Grace Fitzgibbon tells us, authorities warn the worst is yet to come.
Well, take a look at this. This is what residents in Smithtown are dealing with just outside Kempsey on the state's mid-north coast. The levee bank broke here in Smithtown overnight, sending several properties underwater. As floodwaters continue to rise, there's serious concerns for Kempsey's CBD. Residents are advised not to drive or go outside unless absolutely necessary. The situation is being very closely monitored. Right now, the levee in Kempsey is holding, but there are grave concerns that it will break with more rain on the way. If floodwaters begin to take over the Kempsey CBD, there is concerns about access to roads, damage to sewage systems, power, phone and internet lines. The region is no stranger to floods. However, locals say this time it feels very different.
This is different to what we've seen before. We could be in big trouble.
The main message from authorities is do not attempt to drive through floodwaters under any circumstances. The same advice applies to those in nearby Port Macquarie, where the Hastings River continues to rise. The record sits at 6.1 metres, held back in 1968, and the Bureau of Meteorology is now predicting it could blow out to 11 metres. It is a very nervous time for residents stretching right across the mid-north coast. Right now there has been a slight break in the rain. They are doing what kind of repairs and preparations they can before that downpour returns.
And floodwaters ripped this house from its foundations, sending it floating down what used to be a small town street. The property, patio and fence, still intact, was swallowed whole by the Manning River in Taree. The young homeowners were meant to be celebrating their wedding today. 2 young men have lost their lives after a ute crashed into a tree north of Adelaide. As Tom Angley reports, their friend was trapped in the tray of the vehicle. Remarkably, survive the impact.
Roadside tributes continue to grow here for the two young men who couldn't be saved. 23-year-old Harley Lidso and passenger 20-year-old Alex Waite killed when their ute slammed into a tree. The driver losing control around 2:30.